Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening, and thanks to all of you at home out there. Don't get to. We're live, correct? We're live. Well, welcome. Moving on, I'd like to call the New Milford Board of Education to order. April 24th, 2018 at 7:30. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And thank you. Okay, our first order, and I'm not going to call it business because it's an excellent time, our recognitions, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Smith.
All right, so we have a lot tonight. So the first piece of recognition tonight is for some students. And we had 15 students from the high school that had artwork accepted into the third annual juried art show in Brookfield. The exhibition was titled Artists on the Rise, and it was open to all high schools across the greater Danbury area. And we had students that submitted clay and ceramics, photographs, fiber, glass jewelry, mixed media, painting, drawing, wood, metal, and video. And we had a large number of students that were recognized. And so I'd like to call them up. Entering work in a juried art show as a high school student is a pretty impressive thing. And so I think it's a tribute to our students, the parents that support them, and supporting an artist is sometimes a hard thing to do as a parent. So I think that I appreciate the work that you do to support your students. And being entered in a juried show is impressive. And so I think that our teachers that are here, if they want to come up and present with us, they're encouraging students to participate is pretty big. So Maya Addison is our first student. Is Maya here? Come on up, Maya. Nice job. And then Fiona Alexander. And then Nicholas Arlins. Is Nicholas here? Nice job. Catherine Clausen. Jenna Epstein. Okay. All right. Justin. Oh boy, I'm gonna Ferrero. Justin Ferrero. No, Justin. Kristen Cornus. Nice job. Liam Lacey. Colleen Ryan. Hunter Sloan. Jefferson Vieira. Cassandra Way. Yes. All right. Michaela Cigarelli. All right. Carolina Zimney. Emma's not going to go anywhere because Emma actually, if we can embarrass her for a minute, actually got 2 awards. Emma's sculpted work was accepted into the National K-12 Ceramic exhibition held in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania this year. And my personal story about Emma, so my sister's an art professor at Ithaca, and I sent her images of Emma's work because it really is impressive. So if you go on the website and you look at it, you can link right to the Pittsburgh, PA ceramic competition, and she really did an amazing job. So I just want to say congratulations and nice job. All right, at this point, we're going to switch from students to the staff members that make our district what it is and help inspire these young students. A couple students walked in. All right, thank you for that. Oh boy, I didn't mark who was here though. All right. So those students that came in just now, can you come on up for a minute? Yep, I don't know your names yet, but we're going to know them. So come on up. Jefferson. Congratulations, Jefferson. Before you Vera. Now I should mark these here. Jefferson. Vera. Congratulations, Jefferson. Is there another student that came in? You're with him? All right. I have my back to the door, so if any other students come in, someone give me a shout. So now we'll switch to staff members. So each month we recognize staff members for the work they do. They've all been nominated through an anonymous online system. They've been chosen through that nomination, so we select one adult, one teacher, or staff member per building, and then one staff member that isn't affiliated with any specific building. And we're going to call up one more student now. Are you an art student? Yes. Come on down. What's that? Fiona. Congratulations, Fiona. So from Northville this month is Miss Denise Ambrose Arnakis. I think I saw her here. She wants to come up. We're going to read and embarrass you. Denise supports the PBIS, which is our positive behavior team, by being a leader and a coach. She helps keep the team on task, as well as supporting other staff members in striving to create a positive learning environment. Nice job, Denise. From New Milford High School is Miss Christine Benson. I am nominating Mrs. Benson. Clap for her. I'm nominating Mrs. Benson because she helped me feel comfortable in a situation most teachers would not know how to handle. She went above and beyond what she's expected to do, and I'm very grateful to have an adult like her in the building. Nice job. From Sarah Noble this month is Miss Jen Chmielewski. Jen is assistant principal at Sarah Noble. Jen is articulate, poised, and a true instructional leader. She works tirelessly to ensure that teachers are supported as they work towards goals. You will frequently see Jennifer attending teacher leader meetings where she listens and shares instructional knowledge as a member of the team, and in classrooms where learning is happening throughout the day working with students and teachers. Jennifer works closely with parents as partners to help create plans for children that result in success. It's a nice job. Non-school specific, and I don't see, is Jack here? Yeah. So Jack Ducey is our, yay, come on up, Jack. So Jack is our district mail courier. Yeah. Sometimes he does it in a Model A. Literally. Jack is very reliable and does his job as a district courier quietly, independently. He is friendly and helpful to all the schools. Nice job, Jack. From Schaghticoke is Miss Teresa McGinnis. My daughter has always struggled with math. Even when she receives extra help, she still did not grasp the concepts. This year was the first year it finally clicked. She's excelling and finally loving math. She would not have gotten here without Mrs. McGinnis. I cannot thank her enough for being a caring, knowledgeable, and dedicated teacher. And from Hill and Plain is Miss Anne Marie Tazi. Anne Marie goes above and beyond to being a kind and loving member of the Hill and Plain community. Anne Marie thinks about what is always best for children. She is uplifting and motivating when students or staff are trying to persevere. Anne Marie does her job very professionally and with a smile. Thank you. So now each of these recognized staff members is going to pick a little blue box. All the blue boxes have a lapel pin to recognize their service to the district. One of those boxes has a smiley face on the inside, and that smiley face means that Ingersoll Auto will give them a car to drive for the next month and represent the district as a staff member of the month. And then for those of you that don't get the car, we do have a nice little parting gift.
Okay,
Open your boxes.
three. Looking for that smiley face. I think we found it.
I didn't see any. Maybe it's just verbal.
And we'll take a short break right now, please.
You like to have everything
We have
written
some
down.
refreshments up here. You're more than welcome to indulge. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll be resuming our meeting.
You can empathize with how she felt today. Okay, I got like 3 of them.
No, that's my dead pen.
Oh, gotcha. It's not sharp. Put that pencil on. Okay.
I can get
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm good.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll be resuming our meeting. At this portion, we'll be taking public comment. Please note that with any public comment, there is a 3-minute limit. Do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, we actually have 3 people. First person is Heather Bird.
My name is Heather. I'm not sure it's on. My name is Heather Bird. I am in 3rd grade in Mrs. Sarah's class. Tonight I want to tell you about a few things that are very important to me at school. The first thing that is important at school is our special classes, art, music, and gym. These classes are very important because they will help kids figure out their goals of what they want to be when they are adults. For example, I want to be an excavator driver and a builder. In art, I can create blueprints and design pictures of my own. This year, I was able to participate in lots of clubs, including intramurals, computer science club, chess club, and yoga club. These clubs help us in lots of different ways. In intramurals, we get exercise in fun ways. In computer science club, we program computers and use our brains to figure out strategies to solve problems and win games. In chess club, we use skills from school, like making predictions, to help us win. In yoga club, we stretched our bodies using calming exercises, which helps us to focus more in school. Last but not least, I want to talk about the teachers. The teachers help us in many, many ways. For example, this year my teacher taught us about area, diameter, perimeter, and square inches. All of these things are important to someone like me who wants to be a builder and excavator driver. Teachers also help the children in need, like people like me who have ADHD and need help focusing and with their organizational skills. Those are my top 3 favorite things about school, and I think they are very important. But there are lots more that I could not name because it would take too long. Thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you very much, Heather.
All right. Next person is Aaron Bird.
Microphone
Yes, I think.
It's only for video.
It's only for video.
So speak a little louder.
Hi, my name is Aaron Bird from the 3rd grade. Over the last few weeks, it was the persuasive writing unit in which I came up with this idea, this speech. At first, I was going to make a speech about the school budget, but then I changed my mind. Listen to this speech to change your mind about specials. Art. I believe art teachers should get more respect. They do so much work doing special to try and teach kids art. They are hardworking and should deserve more respect and be cared about. Some students think specials are the best time of day. I think it would be better if we gave the art teachers more respect because they would work harder to teach kids art and have them able to pass down that talent throughout their life and able to teach other kids that come to the school they teach. Also, I believe that our teachers should be paid more. They would work harder if they were paid more. The children that like special the best would like it. The people that teach art will also be happy because they can provide for their family. They will raise a good family. It will also bring more teachers to this town. Gym. I believe that gym teachers should have more respect. Gym is lots of kids' favorite special. In gym, we play lots of fun sports like basketball, volleyball, and badminton. We also play games like Hula Hut Frenzy. In Hula Hut Frenzy, you try to knock down the other team's hula hut. In the fitness unit, we practice lots of exercises, like push-ups, curl-ups, and other exercises. We also run around the track 4 times. We did that right before the morning horse race. It was a very good unit. The only thing I liked better was the games unit. Intramurals. The PE intramurals is very fun. Also, my favorite intramural is the kickball intramural. Also, I like the running intramural. That is where you run a relay race around the track. I believe that music teachers should get more respect. They teach students to play instruments like recorder and xylophone. At the end of 3rd grade, we watched Peter and the Wolf, where you have to try and find which instrument played which character. Chorus. In chorus, we sing lots of songs. At first, I was scared to perform in the Christmas concert, but I did. The songs we sang was All the World Needs Now Is Love, Feliz Navidad, and A Candle for Peace. Longer specials and longer recess. I think we should have longer art class. It would be good for the people that like specials the best. It would also affect education. I think we should have longer gym class. In my opinion, gym is the best special. It teaches kids lots of sports like basketball and volleyball. Also, we play lots of fun games like Hula Hut Frenzy and the exercise disposer. It would also make us better athletes, stronger and more flexible. I think we should have longer music class. I like playing the recorder and listening to music. It would be better for the kids that like specials the best. I like listening to the symphony orchestra, which we do sometimes. I think we should have longer recess. I've seen kids play sports and teach other kids sports. I know though some people like specials the best, the people who like recess the best will like it. So we should have a longer recess. And now I'm done.
Thank you, Erin.
All right, and we have Megan Bird.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for listening. That's the first thing. Thanks for listening to my kids speak and giving them the opportunity to share their thoughts about their school lives with you and how school impacts them on a daily basis. Particularly, obviously, their specials classes are important to them. But I would also like to say it was also very important to them. Both of their classroom teachers are here tonight to support them, and that made a huge difference. So thank you both for coming. In hopes that other students and parents will also stand up and be heard about what's important to them, I'd also like to start that conversation by telling you what's most important to me. At best, and that's assuming that the referendum passes, you all will have a very difficult task of trying to maintain quality programming while reducing the budget by more than an additional $900,000. I'm a realist and I understand this will likely mean further reductions in staff and programs. But I'd like to urge you to consider some other options as well. First, I'd love to see you get creative and consider other options to increase revenues rather than simply making cuts. I personally am all for reinstating pay for play, and not just for high school sports, but for anything that is an extracurricular activity, even as low as Sarah Noble. My kids have participated in the clubs here, before and after school intramurals and chess club. I don't know if you could hear Heather listing all the clubs that she's participated in. And I have zero problem chipping in towards the stipend for those teachers because these clubs are really important to the students. It gives them a chance to utilize the skills they learn in class in the real world. They've participated in computer science club, learning some additional programming skills. Chess club, as Heather mentioned specifically, helps her use her prediction skills about what the next moves are going to be. So it's really a good addition to their standard learning. Also, an important thing that I would like to see happen, and I know that there's some qualms about this for state laws about free and equal educational opportunities, but I'd love to see parents chip in to school supplies at the beginning of the year. almost every other district that I know of does that. I know it's a drop in the bucket, but it's something. And if it can save part of a program even, I'd like to see it happen. Those who can't afford to, I know that you can ask for extra, can you send in an extra person's thing, or can you chip in as a class to send in, enough for the students who can't. And I'm sure, being very involved with PTO, we can make that happen as parents. It's also very important to me and to our students that we do all in our power to provide every student in our district with opportunities to reach their own potential, not just meet a minimum standard. Enrichment programs in science and for the gifted and talented students are just as important to their success in life as our programs in the arts for students who are more artistically inclined, and tech ed programs for those who are likely to go into a trade right out of high school versus going on to college. For those who are planning on going to college, competition is steep to get in, and top choice schools, into their top choice schools, and our students deserve to have programs offering not only advanced academics, but also extracurricular programs that round them out as individuals. Those are all things that are very important when you're applying to schools. They're not just looking for your advanced classes, they want to see that you're involved in your community as well. And I know this sounds like I don't want anything cut at all, which is really kind of true, but I know that can't be happening. But I would like to propose that we consider more creative options be considered before making cuts that will permanently or at least long-term impact the students who are in the school today and those coming in. Because once we cut something, it will be more costly to reinstate it, and it will be more difficult to bring it back as well. I urge you to be a little more aggressive in your risk-taking, and if we have to go to the town in the middle of the year, so be it. So I say go for that. Be a little more aggressive in how many students you're thinking you're going to end up outplacing and things like that. One suggestion also that I would have is that we work closer with the town. I know we're working in some ways with the town to consolidate some of the costs that are shared costs. I would say look deeper and see what else could be combined costs beyond just building maintenance and things like that. And lastly, an idea that I had come up with kind of in my sleep one night, I think. I'm not sure why we can't ask on our tax bills like electricity companies do on electric bills, would you like to contribute an extra $1 or 10 or 20 or 100 with the earmark specifically towards whatever that person wants it to go towards, either the bucket of education, which is where mine would go, or the bucket towards road repairs if somebody was really more inclined to do that. I'm not sure if there's legalities around that. Actually I am sure there's legalities around that, but I'm sure there's a way to make it happen as well if we're creative and think outside the box. And in order to do that, in order to be more creative and think outside the box, I'd also like to suggest that you engage more beyond your own selves and bring in some community members to help brainstorm outside the box ideas for saving particular programs or for gaining funding for particular programs. I know you all work really, really hard, and there's no reason that the rest of us can't help as well because we want to save whatever we can save. And lastly, I just wanted to give you an update on our group, the Save Our School Budget Group. As you know, we had a decent turnout at the public hearings. 47 people spoke or sent letters that night, and 39 of them, or 40 of them, were specifically for putting back money towards the education budget, which thankfully we did get some of that back, not as much as I had hoped, but at least we're in a less of a hit to start. Now that we have the date for the referendum, which is May 15th, if anybody hasn't heard, we'll be continuing our work. We're going to do a big push to get people out to vote, and to educate them that they really need to pass this, because if they don't pass both this and the town, it goes back to town council. I think it's fairly clear how town council feels about the Board of Ed's budget, and I can see it being zeroed out or even worse if it goes back to them. So those are our tasks that we'll be working on. If any of you have ideas of how we can do that, we are always open for those as well. And thank you again all for your hard work. And I know it's not an easy task for you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
Anybody else care to address the board? Okay, sensing none, we'll close public participation, move on to the PTO report. Mrs. Lewis? How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Good evening. Believe it or not, the end of the school year is quickly approaching, but the PTO is still hard at work. All the schools are still trying to raise those last few dollars to benefit the students in our schools. Scattacoat's Flamingo Flock fundraiser begins the end of this week, while some of the other schools are doing movie night and plant sales. Grad Parties Junk in the Trunk is being held this Sunday at the high school, while restaurants in the area will donate 10% of their revenues. Please try to visit All Aboard on May 2nd, Three Brothers Restaurant on May 12th, and First and 10 on May 16th between 6 and 10. Dates have been set for the send-offs for the students who will be moving into new schools, as well as some other great events like Touch a Truck, Bingo for Books, and Family Fun Night. It's never too early to start to plan for next school year. We are in the process of recruiting new volunteers and firming up our PTO scoreboards. Our May Spirit theme is Crazy Hair Day. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to the student rep.
Good evening, everyone. So to start off, even though we had a few more snow days than we hoped, it was nice to finally have spring break where some of us could get away somewhere warm. But I hope all of you had a chance to get outside and enjoy the nice weather as well.
So before spring break, we had a guest speaker at the school who talked to us about social media and the importance of what we say on social media. And I think personally it was an amazing presentation. He opened our eyes a lot to what social media really can do in impacting in just schools and stuff like that. We're moving on to college, and that would really impact us. Today, the juniors took their SAT. I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't as terrifying as I thought it would be. But I am happy it's over with now. So now we're preparing for AP exams and stuff like that, which I was like, oh my God, APs. Yeah. But I think we're prepared. The teachers are doing really well preparing us. So, and we had the Truth About Hate program recently at the high school, which I think the students enjoyed a lot. But on May 1st, during the staff meetings after school, Ms. Skorlik is bringing us back together so we could talk to the staff about the Truth About Hate. So hopefully we can help teach the staff some of the stuff that we taught the students.
So some of you may know, but the month of April is Jazz Month. So the Friday before spring break, the New Milford High School Jazz Band traveled to Northville Elementary School and Scattacoat, and we played some music for them. I know the elementary school kids are actually working on some of their own, and they're trying to learn the basics. So it was a good opportunity to go and share our experiences with them and hopefully get them excited to play in high school. This Thursday, we're having our Jazz Fest at New Milford High School. This is an after-school program where the main jazz band and then the small jazz combo get together with Scattacoat and the Sarah Noble Jazz Band, which is crazy that there's a Sarah Noble Jazz Band now, where we have a clinician come in, share his knowledge with us, and then we have some sectional time where we practice all together, and then starting at 7 o'clock at night, there's like a family-friendly performance, you can call it, with a potluck dinner where we all get to play music together, which is fantastic. And then the day after, this Friday, we're also going to WestCon for their Jazz Fest. So this is the end of the week for us, but that's where we get to go and we get to perform in a judged performance. So that's another great opportunity to keep growing in our musical education.
Coming up on May 11th, the Dramatics is having their annual Friday Night Live, very similar to Saturday Night Live, but more family-friendly. The skits are all written by students, so it's interesting to see what we kind of put together and how we all work together to run it. And prom's coming up the next day. So this year we're doing combined prom, which is actually really great because that means it's more affordable for kids to go. Tickets are only $60 this year, and like previous years where it was up to like $120 some years. So it'll be really nice to see how that changes everything.
And our Spanish students just got back from their trip to Peru, which I heard went fantastic. Fun fact, I didn't know, but since they're under the equator, they're actually entering their winter season, so I learned that, but it sounds like they learned a lot. Got to see some cool things like Machu Picchu. And to finish out, many students, many seniors like myself are on the final week of their college decision, ending May 1st for most students. So stressful week, but very exciting to move forward in our journey. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next we have approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the following Board of Education minutes, special meeting minutes, March 20th, 2018.
Second.
And is there any discussion? Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay, regular meeting minutes of March 20th. I need a motion to approve the following Board of Education meeting minutes, regular meeting minutes, March 20th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor? And thank you. Okay, moving on, superintendent's report.
So the first motion, or first item is to say nice job to the students, because I think we checked off about 3 of the same things. The Peru trip, I was going to mention that I also heard it went really well. If you remember, the addition of the Spanish trip was something we did relatively recently when they went to Costa Rica. That was kind of a shorter trip. We've now expanded that to Peru, which by all accounts was a pretty fantastic opportunity for students. As you heard, not only did the SATs start today, but this is also the beginning of the state assessment window, so Smarter Balanced testing began. We start to switch now that we finally had a spring break, all 5 days, thankfully. To shift to end of the year planning. There will be now an event pretty much at every school, every night from now until June. It will be a big run. The 2 other pieces, one, I have a fun fact of my own. We had a student that graduated from our adult ed program a couple of years ago who is now finishing college and is actually going to represent that college at our college fair at Milford High School. So it's a real success story. And so kudos to our program and to the student for getting this far. And then the other thing I want to talk about is we finally found the root cause of the graduation discrepancy that came out a few weeks ago. We knew when that data was released that an 82% graduation rate was a significant drop, and that there was something in that we would have known if our graduation rate dropped by 10%. And so Mr. Corpo did a really thorough job working through the data, working with the State Department, working with our own internal structures to find out where this discrepancy was driven by, or what drove that discrepancy. And really, we were able to identify 36 students that 25 of them did graduate. Special ed students, and when they graduate, we traditionally or historically have entered that data later because we give the summer for those students to count. They count as a 4-year graduation cohort. We're not the only district that does that. It's pretty common practice. What changed was the state reporting window, and when they closed that, in the past, you used to be able to go and edit those numbers, and those numbers counted. The shift is that you can no longer edit after the window closes, and that was our discrepancy. So our current practice, or formally our practice of being able to edit those students and capture that data, we are not able to do. And so those 25 students who did graduate as part of the 4-year graduation cohort were not entered into that state collection. In addition, students who are in our 18 to 21-year-old program do not count as a 4-year graduation cohort. They don't graduate in 4 years. They're special needs students that go to our 18 to 21-year-old program, and they stay with us until they turn 21. Nowhere in the state do those students count as part of a graduation number. Last year, we had 6 students enter that cohort from high school. That is a historically high number. Those students wouldn't have counted as part of the graduation cohort anyway, but we're able to identify those 6 students as part of that. And when you recalculate those 25 students that graduated and weren't in that collection, the number moves to an 89.5, which is about a 1.5 less than where we normally are. And if we could include those 6 students, our rate would have been at 93.4%, which are, our number is going to fluctuate a point or two every year. We want it to continue to grow, but a 90% graduation rate is historically more with what we have experienced. An 82 would have been, fires and flares going up and something catastrophic happening. So we've corrected kind of our internal process to make sure that those students who complete graduation through our special education program, whether it be by the night of graduation or through the summer, are now going to be captured, and we've changed some of our internal reporting pieces. But that at least clarifies. Kind of the downside is that this reporting, this didn't just happen in New Milford, by the way. There were other school districts that experienced the same kind of shift. And unfortunately, we cannot change that number because it's part of the federal collection of graduation data. I would go on record now of saying that New Milford will see a huge growth in their graduation data as next year's report gets sent to the feds. And any recognition we may receive from the feds, I would say don't take too seriously, because it's really just a byproduct of what happened this past year. But at least that clarifies, and we weren't sleeping well, because that was, a shock to us. And so now we can at least put a reason behind that. And then the last piece, and I'll say this a couple of times, but high school graduation is June 22nd at 22nd? Yeah. 23rd, Saturday. Saturday the 23rd. It's my birthday. On Bill's birthday. We will have, a large amount of students clapping on Bill's behalf and celebrating at the O'Neill Center at WestCon. All of board members are invited to attend, and we'll be sending out information shortly for cap and gown and maybe a birthday wish to Bill.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the chair's report. First of all, May 15th was the date set for referendum. So that would be both the town budget as well as the school budget. Also, we are continuing talks with the mayor's office to determine how to resolve the cuts to the town and by extension to the school for this year. We're hoping to, we'll have it wrapped up by June 31st. And the other thing is June 30th. His birthday got me mixed up. And also, a glimmer of hope for next year's budget. Presently in the General Assembly, there are two versions of a budget bill that restore considerable amounts of money to the ECS grants to schools. Cautiously optimistic, I guess, is the term we use, but there seems to be a promise, some promising for next year, and certainly that would help both the town and the school out there. So we'll continue to monitor that. And moving on from there to our committee reports. Facilities, Mr. McCauley.
We had a very interesting, informative meeting, facilities, and finally one that was actually longer than the meeting that followed, first time ever.
Thank you for that, Mr. McCauley.
The big part of that meeting was a report on the thermal scan that was done on all the roofs of all the buildings by the Garland company that did it, and it was a very informative presentation. Initially, when we saw the initial PowerPoint, it looked kind of dire, but now after this presentation, it looks like we have a window where we can make some decisions about the roofing repairs that need to be done. But we don't have to do them all immediately, and that's something we're certainly going to discuss as a board, and it's something that Mr. Munret is going to come up with a list of priorities. Also at that meeting, the overtime was presented. Thanks to this really lovely winter of 11 snow days, there was overtime. The positive of that is that it's not going to impact our budget too negatively. We are going to be able to cover that. It's within the budget. And also, the other thing looming for us is the the three tanks, the three oil tanks that are going to need to be replaced, and there was a walkthrough by 6 vendors for 3 of our oil tanks and 3 of the town's oil tanks, and we'll be hearing more about that at the next facilities meeting. And that's about all I have.
Well, that's enough. Thank you.
It's all very expensive, I apologize.
Operations?
That'll
Wendy?
make our meeting longer the next time. So, as Mr. Lawson alluded to, we are still trying to, or we are working with the town to close the gap of $450,000. We're looking at the operations. As we do every month, you'll see the monthly reports here. We have a revised exhibit, personnel exhibit. And we had a brief discussion. Some things are not on the agenda, in which there was a discussion. The first is, number 1 is the capital reserve. There was a question of how the capital reserve works and what was in it, and through work with our administration and the town, we were able to determine there are 3 pieces of the capital reserve. The town has a portion, the board has a portion, and the turf has a portion. Currently, we have $926,102 in our capital reserve. That's earmarked for the board. And it began a good collaboration of how the account really works and that breakdown. So we're grateful for that information. The monthly reports are all on for vote, so I won't go into too much detail because I'm sure when the motion comes up, there'll be many questions over that. Our encumbrances, our possible, line item questions and where we stand there. So I'll leave that going into there. And then we had a brief discussion over possibilities with, again, working towards the 450 and possibly if we are favorable in some direction, considering, putting some of that money towards a turf field, replacement on a reoccurring basis. But that was just a brief thought, so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Policy, JT?
Thank you, David. Policy meeting. Everything on there was for discussion, so no actionable things you'll see on tonight's agenda for us, but the 1000 series, we were looking to get eyes on there's about 26 policies all told in the 1000 series. I'll give you the actionable pieces there. One of the pieces was there's a few that we asked for legal to put some eyes on, and at the same time some additions that we requested as well, through the subcommittee. One of those policies is policy 1000, the concept, goals, roles in community relations, and there's some effort to add some of the language from the mission statement within that policy. It's actually the intro policy for our policy folks. So we've got, that's going to be coming back to policy, which is next week, next Tuesday. So another piece too, 1110.1, communications with the public. There's a reference in there to No Child Left Behind that has been sunset, and the new federal legislation is called ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. So just a little bit clean up there. We actually dug into that. Interesting to learn too. We had some Title I language in there. While we don't qualify at that threshold for that title, well, at that level, but we're going to keep that in there as well. So if we do meet that threshold at some point, that language is there. Minor language cleanup in 1112. News media relations. There were some cross links in there. The word broadcast was in there, and we're just looking to kind of catch all a little bit more with that word broadcast, so we can kind of take on some other forms of communication when it relates to news media. And Mrs. Fallenbach made the really good connection here that we have a lot of 9000 series cross links for the bylaws and the 1000 series. So we may kind of look at some of those too, and how, so we don't have redundancies, or we don't have things living in 9000 that really should be in 1000 or vice versa. And we had a very lively discussion. For our 45 minutes, you get 4 minutes of overtime, so I hope we're not over. But a nice lively discussion on public participation. I think the general tenor of the group was, we're okay with where we are. We always have that, Robert's rules, we have 2/3. We could change that even tonight, so long as we confine to a set amount of time, and we make that pretty clear at the start. So thank you for that, board member, or policy members. And what else did I have in here too? So, yeah, for next week's policy meeting, you'll have a Friday posting for that. Mr. Smith and I are gonna be working on that agenda, but some of that will be bringing some things back. And also kind of we had one other thing in there, and that was graduation requirements. It was purely an item of discussion, but it just opens our eyes a little bit to what our graduation requirements are and what the state mandate is, and how we're ahead of that, but in a good way. And so we'll likely revisit that. Mrs. Fallenbach also said the 2000 series might be something that, as we march through these 26 some odd 1000 series, the 2000 is woefully dated. So we may take a look at that. But again, let's see how this march goes, and sorry, the march through 1000. It's not march anymore. You know, and I'll bring that back. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
In Committee on Learning, Tammy.
Yes, we have two curricula coming before the board tonight for approval, AP Language and Composition and Writing Research and Workshop. So we'll get to those later. Ms. DeCorpo told us, and this is something following up that the students had talked about, that the 11th grade students attended the Truth About Hate presentation that extends the NAMES program that's offered to our 9th graders. She said it was a wonderful first move towards tackling bias and will help create a common terminology for change. So there was pretty good feedback regarding that presentation. And our presentation for the COL meeting was on TEAM, which is the support for new teacher induction. At one time, this was funded by the state, and Connecticut actually had a model which was highly regarded. However, there was a change at the state level, and districts no longer receive state funding. Surprise, surprise. Therefore, districts have to come up with their own programs. Our district is working with Advance on a review of practice model that includes collecting evidence, analyzing, processing, and action on the teacher's part. The goal is 3 cycles within 2 years. And there's also a team committee that is working through this process. So far, the new program has been very well received, with new mentors signing up to participate. Any teacher who has taught for 3 years to in-district qualify to be a mentor, and mentors do receive a $500 stipend, which is set by the state, even though the state does not provide funding for it. So it was a very informative meeting, and there's lots in the minutes if anybody wants to read through it, and that's all I have.
Okay, at Advance, we won't have a report because we have that slot open. So if anybody is interested in that, please let me know, and I know you will by Friday. Okay, and I look forward to having that. In the meantime, we'll do our best to keep you informed of the goings-on there. Coming up with that is the Connecticut Boards of Education, CABE. Primarily, I mentioned it in my chair's report. The CABE and CAPS, for that matter, are lobbying heavily the General Assembly to restore funding to schools, not just educational cost sharing. There are actual some talking points about restoring monies to teen, but again, this is all talking right now, and we'll definitely know by the next board meeting because the session is scheduled to end May 9th. So that's what they've been pursuing. Moving from there, negotiations.
The negotiation team meets tomorrow.
Yes.
So there you go. Secretaries, we meet tomorrow.
And if I could just add, if you.
Sure, go ahead.
Also with negotiations, team will be meeting on Friday for the purpose of reviewing the process for ongoing negotiations. So that'll be coming up as well. And with that being said, the magnet school. Eileen.
When Mr. Smith and Tammy and I went to the magnet school, they mentioned, not very enthusiastically, that there would be a spring meeting, but definitely there'll be a fall meeting of all the representatives from all the districts. So I will follow up to see if that unenthusiasm stayed unenthusiastic, and we'll get back to you if there is a meeting.
Hey, thank you. Would perhaps in the meantime you could do at Advance.
In advance.
Just saying. I mean,
I'll put my hand up.
From what I hear,
I'll do
that they have good food.
Good.
Good. I hear they have good food. Just no reservations needed.
I'll do it advanced.
Okay, thank you. And then discussion and possible action. Okay, I need a motion to approve Exhibit A, personnel certified, non-certified appointments, resignations, and leaves of absence as of April 24th, 2018, and I believe you received it.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Monthly reports. I need a motion to approve monthly reports, budget position dated March 31st, 2018, purchase resolution D-709, and request for budget transfers.
So moved.
Seconded?
Any discussion?
Question?
Yes, sir.
So, in looking at the policy agenda, this is the 331. This is, so somewhat maybe stale. That's not an indication, but just because we've had a later date, right? Any, now that we're towards the end of April, I'm curious, have these numbers moved at all, as far as big picture balcony view?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I would say, so, to your point, we're right at the end of April. In 2 weeks, we'll have operations. So very shortly, we will run the April budget position, and you'll see another month tick off. So many of these numbers will shift over this month as end-of-year purchases happen. These would be anything that school districts are purchasing. We're pushing hard for any of the supplies they need for end-of-year activities to be encumbered. Anything that is ordered for this school year, we want to have a good picture. I have my budget update or budget position update later tonight, but basically, in order for us to tie out the 400,000 hole that the town has asked us to cover, in addition to the 200,000 of excess cost, we need to have a very strong picture of where we are now. So my expectation is that when we have our operations committee meeting next month, that number will be as solid as possible, and we can start to tie out those holes.
Right. That was the discussion, some of that at operations, as we start to roll that down, because as you look at it, we certainly do not expect to have $700,000 sitting there. Those are encumbered. But we had we expect our excess cost to come in May, our payment, correct?
Yes, the second payment should come in.
The second payment comes in May. We had 376,000 already. And so the shortfall could be anywhere from 40,000, 200, that we don't know yet. And that, of course, comes out of the bottom line. So as we adjust this and move towards the end of the year, one of the conversations at the town, if it's fair to say, is that it is difficult to identify how we could close that gap if we weren't sure what the revenues were going to be, because that's a large component. It's got to come from somewhere, and we took a hit in that line last year.
Right.
Large that we absorbed. So we had those discussions, and I expect by the May meeting, we'll have a much crisper picture of where we are.
Just for clarification, so we're talking two numbers here totaling 650,000.
I think, yes. So the town has approached us for 450,000, and then right now, we're estimating the shortfall in excess cost to be about 200,000. That's the number we're working with. That is, it could always be better than that. We don't expect it to be much worse than that. We're kind of planning for the worst and hoping for the best.
Okay, yeah, just so people understand where we're coming
And we
from.
probably won't have we definitely won't have the excess cost number for the operations meeting. It's possible that we would have that. For the board meeting, and if we do, we would update that.
Okay, thank you.
But that discussion's important, because we've had some of those discussions with the town, and we haven't, it's not that we haven't had them publicly, we have, but as we start to, shore up the books towards the end of the year, we can have that a little bit with more clarity, so it's important to discuss. But yeah, we're looking at about $600,000 out of this budget that we'll have to cover, if we look at our commitment that way. Now, certainly, if you look at some line items, we're not in the negative on some, but we have to roll all those together in order to get to that number.
Thank you. JT?
Just a procedural question too, because I'm really just amazed at how much we're able to encumber and kind of get ahead of it. I have to think that there's some things you just can't encumber. You know, looking back at the minutes in operations, sports officials, right? You can't say, okay, here's what we're gonna be paying. Can't do, is that something you, like, I've just given some examples, like student transportation for sports game, you know, like, I gotta think that there's some things you just need to be billed to do, you know, and not say, okay, well, this is what the bill might be, and let's encumber it.
So when you look in that balance column,
Yeah,
many of the things that are in there that aren't billed on a regular cycle or aren't based on a known contract amount, that's why, if we know about it, it's encumbered.
right.
And so most of what's in there are things, you know, non-salaried or non-certified salaries, most of those are hourly. So you can only encumber them based on weekly payroll. You know, if people take unpaid leaves or something like that, or they don't come in, and they're not using sick time, or they're out of sick time, all that hourly employee piece gets encumbered weekly. Overtime, we don't encumber. Now that we're through the winter, we now can look at that overtime balance, and that informs the conversation for the end of the year, but we also have projects. This year, we're going to go until June 26th for school on that Tuesday. So we only have 3 days on these books. So the overtime conversation of how much work we're going to have. You know, so all of those, like anything you see in that balance, and this is part of the conversation for next month, is how much can we encumber, and when we shake those loose, can we start to predict what might be left in there? What do we know about, what are historical trends? You know, in that, like, the certified salary line is healthy. Part of the reason that's healthy is we have positions open right now that we're consciously not filling because we need to fill that hole at the end of the year. So some of that is going to help us with that. Over the month, though, we just approved Exhibit A. Some of these folks get paid out of that unencumbered balance. And to your point, spring stipends are happening, sports, all of those things aren't encumbered until the season's over.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Those in favor? And opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Gifts and donations. I need a motion to accept gifts and donations, PTO Exhibit B, in the amount of $10,121.27. I'll make that motion.
Second it.
Any discussion? Any discussion? I think that's a wonderful gift, definitely, and thank you very much to the PTO and all those that make our PTO successful. Okay, those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the following curricula: AP Language and Composition, and Writing Research and Workshop.
Second?
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The presentation by Mr. Duncan on that writing, research, and workshop course was fascinating, interesting. It sounds like it's a great course. And there was a lot of discussion. It's offered to seniors. Why it's not offered to juniors, allowing for more, and I'm beginning to make this discussion argument about more course selections for those students who aren't at the AP level. Mr. Corporal informed us we have 20 AP classes, 155 non-AP, am I right? But we don't offer all 155 classes all the time. This was an interesting course, and it helps students develop their college essays and writing skills and so on. And the teacher sounds like he's very engaged in the course. I kind of asked why it's not offered to 11th grade. I got some explanation given the requirements of 11th graders. I have to believe we have 11th graders who are more than capable of taking this course. And my conversation was, are our guidance counselors, encouraging them. There's no restriction to 12th grade only, is my understanding. So I just hope our guidance counselors are saying, you could probably handle this class, let's say we get you in it. I don't want to see us close out a class for students who have this ability. And this opens up more selections when I truly believe we're having a little bit of a problem getting course selections for some juniors and seniors. So that was a comment on that.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Angie?
Since Joe brought it up, about the college essays, we really shouldn't be writing those the first semester of the senior year. That's really too late. A lot of those kids have needed to have had those done. So I would really strongly encourage us to consider moving those essays to the last semester of the junior year. And then that gives them the summer to work on them, and then they can finish them up. But to have that at the beginning of the senior year, when you've got so many other things going on, is a little too much for a lot of students. And I think if we surveyed the teachers, I think you would find a lot of the students already have those done. So, you know, I don't know whether we can offer this particular class to juniors or not, but just as an overall statement, I really would like to see us at least start that process at the end of the junior year, because I think that's really advantageous to students who are applying to college. And some of those college admissions are October, November. If you're playing a sport, or if you're, you know, still trying to go to visits and things like that, it gets a little overwhelming.
Okay, thank you. And any other comments on the curriculums? Curricula, excuse me. Okay, those in favor? And opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. And items for I'm sorry. Items for information and discussion, the field trip report. Yes, sir.
Question. I see here on the list, has destination. I'm just curious, some of these, what the trips are. So I don't know if we usually, I'm not looking for a full listing. I just, one piqued my interest here. Sikorsky Aircraft, I gotta think that might have been Code Quest, which is a great STEM activity, but I'm just confused. Do we usually get what the trip is and the destination, or just the destination?
So you only get the destination because all the backup is included in the form that comes through my office.
Okay.
So we can add another column.
No, I'm not looking for more work. I
If you
just,
like
you know,
that.
I just feel like we don't really know some of these trips.
That's why you ask.
Right. you
That's
know?
why you ask.
I'm not looking to change field trip policy. I'm just, you know, yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Okay. And anything else on field trips? Okay, moving on to the 2018-19 budget update. Yeah, Mr. Smith, I know you had some comments.
I think we addressed a lot of it as part of the budget position statement. I think right now, we are looking to shore up and identify the dollar amount to meet the town request on the whole, left by state funding in the ECS formula, and the shortfall in excess cost. What I expect to be able to present to you in May is a listing of the accounts where we would recommend the dollars come from to close that hole, and kind of an accounting of an end-of-the-year anticipation.
Am I okay? I thought the budget update was for the budget moving forward.
Or the 18-19 I could speak to as
guess
well.
that's how it's posted, so.
Yeah, you're right, thank you.
We're on
So-
two different fiscal years.
So my notes here were to mention the closing of the hole, which we will do, and we mentioned, but the 18-19
Just-
budget, as mentioned in the items of information. So after the Board of Finance meeting, we have approximately $946,000 to find between now and July 1st, depending on the referendum vote. You hear from the public as you work through on your own. Our goal is to begin to present to you as a board some suggestions. Historically, we have not done that until after the referendum vote, when we know whether or not the dollar amount presented to us is accurate or if it could change. And that's the practice that we're working under now, and if there's any change to that, you know, please keep us posted. I know some of you have contacted me already with thoughts and ideas for us to research. I think out-of-the-box thinking is good, but it's also sometimes complicated, so the sooner you have ideas to us that we can kind of vet and see what that would mean, and sometimes there's unanticipated collateral damage that may occur, and so again, the sooner we have those conversations, the better. In addition, this afternoon, Ms. Baldelli and I met with the teachers that will be eliminated based on the approved Board of Ed budget. And that was part of the 2.3% increase, those positions that we eliminated. Those teachers all have been notified. We will continue to work with those teachers should positions open up in this district between now and the end of the year for retirements or other leaves.
How many positions was that? I'm sorry.
We met with 7 teachers today.
I guess the only thing I have is a sense of frustration that the town and this board have already presented, well, will be presenting budgets to the town for a vote, and then in the next breath, the state saying, well, we might be giving some money back. And that's just a sense of frustration on how that process works. And I just wanted to throw that in there. I mean, I'm grateful, don't get me wrong, but it should have been done earlier.
Well, rarely are the state and the board ever in sync, unfortunately. but-
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just saying, but hopefully it'll work out. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a handle on how many retirements we would have this end of school year, and is there a date for?
We received a few, but we don't, people haven't announced yet.
No, but some are.
We've received, I think, 2 or 3 to
Couple are
date.
trickling in now.
Is there a deadline for the?
No,
There's not.
no, there's no language in the contract for them to have to notify us by.
Just a basic, so as you mentioned, typically the board, not to say that we have to do it this way, but we don't come out and have discussions now what we may cut, because we don't know what the final number could be, and that could change.
Correct.
And in the past, because I've been asked this over the last, week or so, in the past, when you have a meeting and have some of those discussions and then the number changes, people come out and say, well, I didn't know that, and I didn't even go in this direction, that kind of thing. So I understand that. Are you asking that board members who have specific ideas get in touch with you, and you're working on those adjustments, and that you're going to pass them out to board members, or what
So,
will you
for example,
represent?
if, this is with a huge asterisk, this is in no way a suggestion or,
I gotcha.
but people have mentioned restoring pay to play.
I gotcha.
Okay, that's not a overly complicated thing for us to calculate what the potential income could be
What the
based on
revenue would be,
historics or
right.
revenues. Okay, that's one piece. But some are more complicated. Some might mean changing bus runs, for example.
Oh, sure.
Okay, and if you wanted, if that was something that you were thinking about, again, no one's mentioned that, I'm
I
not
understand.
suggesting that, but if that is something that someone was thinking about, that could be it could take a significant amount of work.
Well, that's why I'm asking that, because when you come in and you adjust your budget, you're typically handed and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you're submitted a suggestion
That's right.
from your office. And it's difficult to weed through those things in one night, and of large dollar amounts and long-term consequences. So if there is that kind of dialogue, I would hope that the board in some way, would receive that prior to our meeting. So rather than coming in, that's all
Right.
I'm asking.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Mhm.
And be handed some documents that have been, you've obviously put a lot of work into, but we're given a couple hours to weed through. So as soon as it's put together and you're receiving that information, if it can get to board members prior to us sitting down, that is all I'm requesting.
And to that piece, I think, remember last year, we did kind of the
Yes.
least impact to greatest impact, and I think kind of that least impact piece is an easier thing for us to start to share earlier. And we're not afraid to do kind of the bus route analysis, but to your point, if that comes on like May 23rd, and we have to have that turned around in a couple of days, that's kind of where things get dropped and missed, and, things can't be factored in. And so the sooner, if people are thinking about things,
Well, yeah.
let me know.
I think some of the, would you be objectionable to receiving it piecemeal, meaning some of the easier calculated ones
I think as
we
long
could
as
think
it's set
about.
with a subject line to board members what it is, because we
Right.
do receive a lot of literature.
Right.
And just identify.
Yes.
Just for
Because-
me
no.
personally, when you walk in and you're handed all of that, it gives you've got to think on the fly.
Sure.
And there's,
Mhm.
not that there's anything wrong with that, but these are long-term decisions, and I think that board members should have every opportunity to think outside the box and, really read through that material before they walk into a meeting.
Absolutely. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, at this point, I'll entertain a motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
You got that before me. I'm always the one.
Can I have a second?
I know, I got you tonight.
Second. And those in favor, Joe, put your hand, thank you.
JT, I want to show you something. So.